Hey all, Julia Usher here, joining you live from my basement test kitchen here in St. Louis, Missouri. I hope you guys are all having a great Saturday morning. I am joining you solo here. Last time we had Laura Saporiti, a past competitor and judge, with me, but this time it's just me and some annoying crickets that are chirping in the background. So if you hear a symphony of chirping, you can thank those guys. At any rate, I am only going to be here as long as you need me. I wanted to drop in today to answer any lingering questions you might have about my competition, which it has been open for registration now since July, but entries are not due until October 15th. So people may be working away. Some people may not know about the competition yet, so I'm here to answer the full range of questions from those both in the know, currently working on entries, and those that may be joining the competition. Before we get into questions, though, I wanted to run through a few things for those new to the competition and also to give you some exciting updates about competition prizes. First of all, the competition is online this year. In the past, it's always been held at a physical location. It first started at the Oklahoma State Sugar Art Show back in, about 7 years ago now. Thank you to Carrie Vincent for organizing that and getting me involved in that incredible show. It has since moved to That Takes the Cake in Austin, where it was last year. However, due to COVID, we've gone online this year, which is nice in many respects. It allows people from all over the world to join. Now, they always could, but there was the physical constraint of getting your entry to the show, which prevented people from doing that. You don't have that this year. It's a huge advantage not to have to transport your entry. So I'm really hoping to see a wide range of people from a wide range of places showing us what cookie art means in their country. So keep that in mind. As far as schedule goes, as I just mentioned, we opened registration on July 12th, but entries are not due until October 15th, so there's still plenty of time to work. We're not quite sure yet when we're going to announce finalists. A lot depends on how many entries we get. We are anticipating more than usual because the competition is online, and so far that's proving to be the case. So we will gauge when finalists will be announced once we know the final number of entries. So still plenty of time to work on entries. I will pause here, though, and explain the process. So registration happens on Eventbrite, which is my event platform. There's a $15 USD fee to register to enter. And I do encourage people to do that early, even if you're not completely sure if you're going to come through with an entry. It's a minimal cost of entry, but it does allow us to start planning the judging process. So knowing who's registered just signals to us intent to enter. Entries will actually be uploaded once they're complete onto my site, Cookie Connection. So when you register on Eventbrite, you'll get immediately an email from them with links to where the entry forms are on Cookie Connection. And they're useful to have before you start on your entry because you'll see exactly what you need to upload. That's also spelled out on my site, Cookie Connection, and I'll have all those links in the description under this live once it's over. So you can go view Cookie Connection and see all that information. But I do think it's useful to have that entry form in advance because it really clarifies exactly what you'll need to upload. So that's a little bit about the schedule. I'll take questions in a moment. I did want to give you this exciting new prize update. We are up to 14,000 in prizes, guys, which is huge. That's about 40% bigger than it's been in the past, and about 8,000 of that is in cash. So huge thank you to our sponsors. I am incredibly indebted to them. I'm going to show you some slides about who they are in a moment. Just to clarify, that prize value is going to be roughly divided across 6 winners in the 2 categories. We've got 2D and 3D cookie categories. So there'll be a first, second, third place winner in each of those categories, and that money and prize value will get distributed across them. To clarify, the other 6,000 in prizes is all in the form of digital gift certificate stuff that you guys can easily redeem no matter where you are. So there are no physical prizes that I'll be shipping. It'll be gift certificates that will allow you to apply coupon codes or discounts to various websites or to get fun classes with world-known instructors. So lots of cool stuff. So great news there. The other prize we have, which is a first ever for this competition, is the Carrie Vincent Best in Show Award. Carrie Vincent was a longtime mentor and friend to me. As I mentioned early on, the founder of the Oklahoma State Sugar Art Show and a master cake artist. She took me under her wing about 7 years ago, brought me into her show, and actually started my competition for me. One year she called me and said, hey, I want a cookie category. I've named it after you. I want you to run it. That's sort of how Carrie worked. When she had a plan, she put it into action, and you either went along with it or you didn't. And I loved her for that, creating that opportunity for me. And I try to follow in Carrie's footsteps as much as possible in creating opportunities for others. So we will be awarding one Best in Show award in Carrie's name. That will go to the entry that we think really stands out across both categories. And some of that prize money that I just mentioned will go to that award. Again, I haven't figured out quite how much, but it will be a nice little add-on for whoever wins Best in Show. So that's also great news. So who do we have to thank for this increased prize value? We had some last-minute gold sponsors. Shore Cake Supply, and You Can Call Me Sweetie, came in and really helped to take us over the top. In addition, some other great companies here, I just want to call them out. BRP Box Shop, good friend of mine, Kip Simpson, Creative Sugar Art, Genie Products by Creative Cookie. She is also one of our judges and has judged with me since the very beginning. So she has extensive product knowledge, really knows how products can best be used on cookies, and is really a great judge from that standpoint. Another gold sponsor is the Hungry Hippopotamus, Stephanie Capel. She too is a judge. She's also been a competitor on the Food Network, so she sees both angles, knows both angles of competing quite well. We're thrilled to have her with us. Japan Salonese Association, who's joining us from Japan. We've got some international sponsors really for the first time this year. Myself, I'm sponsoring, of course, I always do. Sam's Cookie Company, Short Cake Supply, I mentioned. Sugar Prism, edible acrylic paints, and I should point out that Sugar Prism also has a show coming up in Arizona, a first-time show for her in March. It'll be a sugar art show, which will be really, really exciting. Sweet Bite app, Sweet Cosmic Colors, and You Can Call Me Sweetie. You Can Call Me Sweetie, also known as Sandy Beltran. I'm sure many of you know her, world-renowned decorator. She is also a judge of the competition, has been judging for many, many years. So we've got a really great judging group that represents all sorts of disciplines, Sandy being an expert in painting, Stephanie being really our piping expert, Ginny being our product expert, and we have a new judge, Laura Saporiti, who joined me on the last live, who was the winner of our 3D category last year, who comes from Italy, brings an international perspective, and is also just skilled across the board in everything from painting to piping. She's won many competitions, not just mine, and has also judged and taught internationally. So just an aside on the judges, you will be learning more about the judges in a future live. I hope to have at least a couple of the judges on with me in about 2 weeks, and you'll also be hearing from them through pre-recorded video clips that I've got coming up. Some of those are really rather nice. On to our silver sponsors. They've also generously donated to the competition, and again, I'm most grateful to everyone here: Busy Bakers, Chewa Cookie, Confection Couture Stencils, who's my partner in my stencil business, CookieCon, which is running a fabulous event right now, Country Kitchen Sweet Art, one of my favorite places to shop, Icing Images, who is just wonderful, Laura Saporiti, who I mentioned, who's giving away some wonderful classes, Learn to Cake with Susan Trianos, and Sugar Veil, my good friend Michelle Hester, who was the innovator of the first edible cake lace. So we have got some amazing sponsors and companies that I'm really proud to have supporting the competition. So we've got a train now going by. You can probably hear that amongst the crickets. Okay, so that's it on what I wanted to say in terms of introductory remarks. So I'm going to turn it over to questions, and maybe I'll linger on the gold sponsors slide so we can give them added recognition while I talk. So I'm going to be looking at comments over here, so if my eyes are wandering, that's because I'm checking out the comment board to the side. But if you guys have questions, would love to hear them now. I don't see any yet. I don't believe. Okay, so ask away. I see Laura is the proper way to pronounce it in Italian online. Hello, good morning. I am going to pose a couple of questions myself until you guys start asking. And some of these I handled in the last live. They're that important that I just want to repeat them. But I will take your questions as soon as I see any come in. One question we often get is, what is a 3D cookie? The first time a 3D cookie category came about was in my competition. So it's sort of a term I coined because I do a lot of this kind of structural work. So 3D cookies in this competition are constructed cookies. They're comprised of multiple cookie components that are put together to create one showpiece. Our specific definition, I'm reading from the notes that you can find on Cookie Connection, is that it is a multi-cookie construction where decorated cookies are arranged in any orientation and pieced together to create a freestanding dimensional piece of cookie art. We have a minimum of 12 cookies in our construction for this competition. There is no maximum count, but the whole thing must fit into a 2 by 2 by 3 foot area. It can be smaller than that. It just can't exceed that. That equates to 61 by 61 by 91 centimeters. So that's what it is, technically speaking, per definition in our competition. And to show you some examples of what I mean by that, I'm just going to show you some of my cookie photos. So I'm going to show you some examples of what it is and what it isn't. To the left here, I have a cookie. It's basically one cookie that's flat, but it's got a lot of stuff sticking up off of it. It's got fondant roses, fondant appliques. So it's got dimension, but it's not what we're calling a 3D cookie. That would be something that would go into the 2D cookie category. Whereas the two pieces to the right, the candelabra and the teapot and fancy sugar bowl behind it, are all cookies. They're multiple cookie projects. The sugar bowl, the small brown piece in the back to the far right, has about 14 pieces in it. The one in the foreground, the teapot, has about 21, and I forget how many are in the candelabra. But you can see multiple pieces structured together to create something unique and dimensional that views well from all angles. That's a critical judging criteria for our 3D category. Just as another example, again, the first two cookies look dimensional, but they're essentially one flat cookie, and they've got lots of royal icing pieces. Those are contoured royal icing pieces, the technique I love to play with, sticking up off the cookies to create the water lilies and also the snowdrops and the bulb, the snowdrop bulb. But not 3D cookies per our competition definition, whereas the ones to the right are. It's hard to see from the photo, but those are little heart boxes. They're comprised of just 3 pieces, pretty simple. So they wouldn't qualify in this competition because I don't have enough pieces in them. We need to have 12, but they are dimensional because they are constructed. The piece to the far right, the bird, the kind of folk art bird sculpture, is definitely 3D, as you can see. I don't know how many pieces are in that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that. And again, that views nicely from all angles, and that's a requirement also for that particular category. So that covers what I mean by 2D or 3D in this competition. I'm going to go back to the gold sponsor slide and just linger there. Any questions? I'm not seeing any, guys, but this is your 30 minutes to an hour to ask away. How many of you all are actually signed up and considering competing? I see some new names here that I don't see on our registration list, so I'm hoping that some of you are planning to join the competition. Hello, Jenny. Laura, did you have anything to add, questions that you think that people ought to have answers to, since people are being kind of quiet this morning? Okay, so Laura asked a few words on dioramas, maybe. Okay, so I think what she means by that is, what is a cookie diorama and what category would it fit into? So let me answer an easier question first. Nicole just asked, hi, Julia, is this competition open across the globe? Yes, indeed. It's online, so anyone, anywhere can enter. Really simple to do. It's a 2-step process. Register on Eventbrite, pay a nominal fee of $15 to signal intent to enter, and then you've got a month and a half now to work on entries. The entries aren't due until October 15th. Now, back to dioramas. Dioramas are typically 3D. It depends on what you're calling a diorama. I wish I had a picture of different styles. Okay, so if something is a few cookies stacked, laying flat, or just standing up, you know, 1 or 2 cookies stacked, I would tend to put that in, you know, theoretically it would fit into our 3D category, but I would tend, we're really looking for something more constructed than cookies just stacked, a couple cookies stacked too tall, you know. We're looking for cookies that are put together in upright standing positions typically, and that are freestanding, you know, that don't have to be propped up by a support to stay upright. Now, if you were to create a diorama that was an enclosed box that had 4 sides with things in it that you could view into, that had other cookies standing up in it, that would most certainly qualify as a 3D cookie. Does that answer the question, Laura? I may have fumbled that a little bit. But a lot of it depends on the actual structure that we're seeing. If in doubt about that kind of thing, people can send me photographs like, hey, this is a construction I'm considering entering. What category would I put it in? And I can help you with that. So, you know, there are some constructions that kind of are borderline. So, I hope that helps. Any other questions? One we often get is like, I don't know, I can't really enter, I'm not good enough. You know, I just started, what do I have to show, blah, blah, blah. So to address that question, I encourage people to put anxiety aside, because this really isn't so much a competition with other people entering so much as it is a competition with yourself. So the point of entering in my mind is to push your skills, you know, to try techniques you might not try otherwise. So everybody really is qualified enough to enter. You may not end up winning the first, second, or third place prize, but you'll end up winning in terms of knowledge and testing your skills. So Nicole asks, what about elements like skewers? Okay, so in our rules, we're pretty specific about trying to avoid supports unless they're very visible. So I want people to imagine that they were presenting this entry for someone to eat. You wouldn't want a skewer like hidden inside a cookie that somebody could chomp into and do some damage to themselves. So if you are going to use internal supports, they need to be visible to the judges and something that would be readily removable if theoretically someone were to eat the cookie. However, judges are going to be more impressed by something that's put together without any internal supports. So, you know, just bear that in mind. In some cases, the structure might absolutely require it. In other cases, it might not. Okay, so Laura comments back on the diorama comment. She said, yes, I was thinking specifically of projects like vintage paper theaters. They are 3D, but you look at them only from the front, so it can be confusing. Okay, good point. So if you are going to do something like a diorama and enter it into the 3D category, theoretically, you know, let's say it's a box-shaped diorama with stuff viewing in from the front. Okay, so theoretically that would fall into our 3D category, but but unless you decorate it from all sides, it's not going to be really viewable from all sides, or it won't score as high maybe on the viewability from all sides dimension. So bear that in mind. If you are going to do a diorama type thing, do make sure there's some interest on the back of the piece, because we are asking for submissions of 360-degree videos and photos from all angles of the pieces so we can see what you did on the back side for the 3D category. So yes, you could enter a diorama type piece that was a box type structure or some other structure of freestanding cookies, but do pay attention to its viewability from all angles. I hope I answered that clearly. And also, Nicole, I hope I answered your question about skewers clearly. The edible support stuff is noted in the notes, so hopefully that's relatively clear from what you'll find on Cookie Connection too. Any other questions? I am surprisingly quiet. I'm out of questions myself. So let me, if you guys don't have questions, I'm just going to move on to my final slide. I'm going to assume that everybody's got this handled. And of course, if we don't get questions addressed today, you can always email me. I do encourage, though, actually, that if you do have questions, to go to Cookie connection to the competition overview page. And again, I'll be posting that link underneath this live once it posts to my Facebook page permanently. I can't do that in advance through the software I'm using, but I'll do it as soon as I get off. And that competition overview page reviews all the rules. It reviews the category definitions. It also has links off to the specific entry requirements for both categories. So that's a good page to look at. And I was going to say that I would encourage you, if you have questions, to leave them under that particular entry on my site. I check it regularly. Plus, I think other people are checking it regularly. It's got quite a lot of views on it. So what that means is if I answer a question there, other people will also have the benefit of seeing the answer. Whereas if you privately email me, they won't. And sometimes the questions I get through private email are really great, and I'll end up posting them on Cookie Connection because I think everybody needs to know the answer. But it's just more direct, I think, if it goes there, if you can remember to do that. Okie doke. So moving on to one other question that I often get, and that is how do I enter? And I alluded to this at the beginning of the presentation. It's basically a two-step process. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but this is how it's worked always at our past shows too. You know, at a physical show, you register early on and then you bring your entry to the competition and put it on the table. Here, we're asking you to register early on Eventbrite. Again, pay that $15 fee. It's $15 per entry. You can enter as many times as you want in as many categories as you want. So you could enter 2D 3 or 4 times, 3D, 1 time, or whatever, or one or the other. So it is $15 per entry. However, it's non-refundable just because of the complexity of, refunding people who don't end up contributing. It's pretty tough. Plus, we use that money to help support the competition in some ways. So registering early is great because it gives us some indication of how many people are going to enter. That allows me to plan the judging process, how much time the judges are going to need to get through all the entries. We do take the judging process extremely seriously. We have anywhere from 6 to 9 criteria that we systematically judge and score against. And then once the scores are tallied, the judges also typically sit down and discuss them to make sure that they didn't really miss anything in going through the scoring process. So we do need to plan time to do that and give it justice. We're also trying to figure out this year how to deliver feedback. In the past, one of the great attributes of this competition is that anybody who wanted it got a physical feedback form from me at the end of the competition. They could pick up the score sheet, and it included their scores compared to an average score of everybody who entered that category of the competition, so they could see how they stacked up. And there are also choice judge comments on things that they really appreciated and things that they thought the entry could have improved upon. This year, again, with it being online, that may pose a challenge for us to be that exhaustive in our feedback, simply because we don't know how many entries we're going to get and how much time that's going to take. And typically that's many, many hours that we do on site over the course of about 24 hours writing up those feedback forms. With us all remote now working on this, it might be a little bit more challenging. So those are the kinds of things I'm trying to figure out and why I'd appreciate early registrations. Not to hammer that point too much, but that's why I am saying that. And then ultimately, the entries will be uploaded to Cookie Connection. There's a database set up there where you can upload photos and videos, and also there's some areas where you would enter text and so on. So when you register on Eventbrite, you'll get an automated message from Eventbrite, which will have links to those entry forms. I ask that you don't share them because they're only for registered entrants. I will be cross-checking those that have registered against those who've entered. So even if those registration links get into the wrong hands, there are safeguards so that we only allow people that have registered to actually compete. So, but you'll get those forms, and as I said early on, they're useful to review in advance because they give you an exact indication of what you're going to need to upload. It's not a lot in my mind. It's basically just a lot of different pictures of the same entry from different angles and a 360-degree video for the 3D one, and also video we're asking of the 2D one. It's less important that we see that one from all angles, but we want to see a video because we want to try to simulate how the judges would actually be looking at it in a live real competition environment, we'd be getting up, looking at details, checking out various angles of the piece. So as you take your video, try to simulate how somebody would be looking at the piece. The videos do not have to be professionally edited. We're actually looking for them to have bare bones, minimal, no stuff, no styling, just the piece, in a plain background, so we can really focus on the cookie piece. And, taking it on your iPhone, cell phone, whatever, is more than adequate. The video upload limit is 100 megabytes, so it's going to be a short video, guys. So just bear that in mind. You're going to have to get a lot into 1 or 2 minutes. But I think that's definitely doable. So it's a 2-part process. Long story short, register on Eventbrite and then upload to Cookie Connection on or before October 15th at 5 p.m. Central Time. That's the deadline for entries. And once we see what we have, I'll have further communications, I'm sure, on the Cookie Connection page. That there's an area of the blog on Cookie Connection, which would be a good one to check back to, because that's where I update everyone on anything and everything about the competition. So once we know how many entries we have, I'll have a better sense of the timetable for announcements and things like that. So that's all I had to say. I'm wondering if there are any more questions from the audience here. We're headed into a long Labor Day weekend here in the United States. I hope people have fun plans for that. I myself am working on a big cookie project, which I hope I can reveal in a couple of months once it launches. I've been working on it for several months, so that's why my kitchen's in a state of confusion back here. I'm in the middle of creating mode. But at any rate, hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. I'm not seeing any questions, so I think I am going to sign off and let everyone carry on with their day. I hope it's wonderful, and I hope to see many of you in the competition. We're super excited about it, super excited to have Laura on as a new judge, super excited to have it online. We don't know what that means for the future. I'm intending to have the competition back at the Austin Cake Show in February, but there may be an online component. We don't know. We're going to see how this show goes this year. So thank you all for showing up this morning. Have a great weekend, and hope to see you in the competition.